This is the Undefeated Sports Network. Sport Court, and court is in session.
All right, what's up, everybody? Back with another episode of Sport Court. I know originally that this was supposed to be a Turtles take, but our guy Turtle is a little under the weather today. So Sport Court Daddy decided, hey, we'll throw it into my court tonight.
Oh.
And we're going to roll this way. Tarbill, how you doing tonight, man?
I was doing well until you referred to yourself as Sport Court Daddy, but
I've been playing. So, like, obviously, Ace is what people call me when I do my podcasting, but Sport Court Daddy has a nice ring to it, I feel.
It has zero ring to it.
Zero?
But moving on. No,
So
I'm doing well, man. In all seriousness, it's been an eventful few days.
Yeah.
Cubs won a game against the Cardinals today, so that was a bright spot as a Chicago sports fan. The
Cubs have been actually, since the All-Star break, have been playing pretty well.
The abysmal White Sox lost by a football score the other night against the Astros, like 21 runs.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I could be a White Sox. Like, I'm a Cubs fan, obviously, but that White Sox team, with the amount of like hype that they had coming into this season, the fact that they're at where they're at right now, record-wise, and just overall play,
right?
Oh, I'd be so frustrated, man. I couldn't. I might switch to be a Cubs fan if I was a Sox fan. There's always room on the bandwagon, so they can jump on over if they want. So.
My buddy at work that sits across from me is a diehard Sox fan, and I walked in after that game was played and just looked at him, and he's like, "Don't even say it.
Yeah,
don't
rough.
Say anything. I have nothing to talk about with you." And I'm like, "What? I was just gonna say, did you watch the game last night?" He's like, "Yeah, I shut it off in the fourth inning."
Oh, geez. Yeah, man, they're hard to watch right now. They're so inconsistent. It's brutal. You got Tony La Russa, who just seems to be completely out of touch with baseball and everything. But
in the first inning.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's old, man. You know, early bird special. They call it that for a reason. Old guys got to get to bed sooner than the rest of us. But we'll get back into some of that stuff. But before that, the Chicago Sky have a pretty big game tonight. Game 3 against the Liberty. We're going to bring on a new guest that we haven't had on yet on Undefeated Sports Network, Mike Hughes. And Mike is kind of like the resident Sky guy, you know what I mean? I watch his pod.
Absolutely.
I watch his show all the time after the games, before the games. Mike, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. I've been watching your stuff for a while. It's a blast for sure.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on with us. It's
appreciate it.
Especially for tonight with Game 3. So I brought you on because obviously the Sky are trying to repeat as champions. What kind of got you so interested in the Chicago Sky?
Yeah, you know, I'm diehard Cubs, Bears, Blackhawks, Bulls, everything. You know, I'm not the biggest and most knowing of the Chicago Fire, but hey, you know, whenever they do become relevant, we'll definitely support it. But it's everything Chicago I've always repped. I've always been in the Chicago Sky, just never really had the platform to speak about it. And I got in with the Chicago media there and the Chicago Sky media, and I've been working for them as a reporter all season. And towards the end of last year as well as when I got credentials for that with the ASAP network. So, you know, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a blast getting to meet the players, getting to really just be a part of that culture. And it's been a long time from the Elena Delle Donne days. You know, everybody loves the Sky. Everybody loves what they bring. It's now starting to become a lot more viewed, you know, and it's starting to become a lot more nationally known. So it's been a lot of fun watching this team and watching this whole entire league kind of grow before our very eyes. And, you know, hopefully it's all from here.
Yeah, man, I know that, you know, over the last few years, women's sports in general have kind of taken a big step forward. A lot of help WNBA from NBA players who have shown a lot of support for them. What do you attribute like the most to the rise of women's sports? Do you think it's just overall the amount of eyes, different platforms? Like, what do you think is helping push the women's sport forward?
I think it's society. I think it's becoming something that's cool. It's becoming something that's known. And, there's a lot of things with cancel culture to where, you're not allowed to shun women out anymore. Like, and that's what, society, and that's what sports was for a very long time. It was a men's driven league. And if you talked about women's sports, people were just going to, ignore you completely or just, not want to talk to you. So, it's coming to a conversation now to where they're getting recognized for how talented they truly are. I mean, we were just talking about it 2 years ago. Before all my Bulls fans, before Arturas came in, I said Candace Parker would be the greatest forward that the Bulls have had in the last 10 years if she joined them right now, because they were just so bad. You're looking at Felicio, you're looking at all these other guys, and I'm like, Candace Parker in the sky would mop the floor with these guys any time of day.
Yep.
But in all seriousness, you really look at women's sports getting better, and a big part of that is honestly just branding and honestly just, having people behind them that are supporting them. And it's a lot of fun, especially seeing D-Book there at Sue Bird's game. And he's been at a lot of Las Vegas games this year. It's a lot of fun.
Now, you brought up Candace Parker. She came back to the Sky last year and helped them win a championship. What do you think, if they were able to repeat, that would do for her legacy?
I think it cements her as one of the GOATs. I think it's this conversation where you look at DT and Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Lisa Leslie, and a bunch of other individuals. But at the end of the day, Candace Parker be ending. I'm not going to say ending, because I don't think this is it for her. But far from over. She's first team All WNBA this year. So I don't think her story's over at the end of this year, no matter how it plays out. But to be a 3-time champ, an MVP, a rookie of the year, she has all these accolades. To do it twice, potentially back to back, it's one of those conversations where I hate this, guys. I don't say this all the time. I hate he is him and she is her, but she is her. Like, that is who she is. And LeBron James says it all the time. I am him, and that's who she is. At the end of the day, she can go to any kind of franchise or organization she wants, and she's going to turn the tables.
Yeah, she definitely brought the excitement back to the Sky. You talked about a 3-time champion. What do you see her? Do you think she would jump into the ranks of top 10 Chicago sports athletes of all time if she was able to win this year?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you have to take it into account of how long she's been here and how long she's going to be here. She is going to be a free agent, I believe, in 2023, 2024, one of those years. So, she spent 2 years here. When you look at that list of Jonathan Tays, Patrick Kane, Derrick Rose, the 90s Bulls, Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, however you feel about him, if there's Sox fans listening, you're looking at Frank Thomas, guys like that. I hate the Sox, but I'm not completely biased. I will give them their love. They had some dogs throughout the years. And then you just look at, the Bears history. And there's a lot of individuals that crack that list that have a lot more, 1, accolades, and 2, time on their respective teams. So when it comes to greatest Chicago Sky player of all time, I think Candace Parker could easily chop on that list if she spends a little bit more time here. But, when you really look at it, I think it depends how you're looking at your list. I think if you're looking at raw talent, let's take out careers, how long they spent there. If you're talking about raw talent, I got Derrick Rose, top 10 athlete of all time in Chicago. Yeah. But if you're looking at it, top 10 all time through what he's accomplished outside of that MVP, there's nothing really there for you. And that's a conversation for a lot of people. So I think it depends how you look at it. I'm biased, so I'll throw her in there. I don't care. But I think others like Sloot and Allie could definitely crack that list.
Yeah, I really like the fact that, like, we talked about the Sky are coming kind of to the forefront. It helps being a good team. But you got guys like Jay Hood on ESPN 1000 talking about them constantly. Yeah. I found myself catching games. It's a great product, man. It's fun to watch. I really wanted to get to a game this year, but I live in Wisconsin, so it's a little bit of a travel for me to get down there. Yeah. What do you think? Now let's get into the game. Game 3. What do you think the Sky have to do to win, and who do you think's going to come out on top?
Well, obviously, I think the Sky are going to come out on top. I think I'd be very biased if I didn't. Right. But it's crazy to me to think, we're even in this situation. When I look at, and not to get off topic, but when I look at the Las Vegas Aces, I've seen how much of a threat they are without even having a sixth player of the year, without even using their bench. Becky Hammond's done a great thing. So my biggest concern is if we do win this game, what happens moving forward? Because this shouldn't be a series right now. Sloot said that perfectly when I talked to her after the game. And it's a series now. This is something very serious. They should have won both in Chicago. And, credit to Sabrina Ionescu, and I was talking to her as well. I don't know how much you guys follow it, but if they're able to get a Breanna Stewart during free agency who grew up in New York, they potentially could have the next Kobe Shaq duo. And I think, New York attributing them and Sandy and what she did last year with the Phoenix Mercury, her being the new head coach, she's creating that culture, and they've done a great job. My big thing is finding that identity. Game 1 and 2 were so different from each other, and it was such a different vibe, and you really can't explain that. And honestly, they've talked about it time in and time again that they want to play 4 great quarters of basketball. And, they set a record, a WNBA playoff record, most points scored in a differential, 100-62. And I talked to Ka after the game, and she was still upset that they lost in the fourth quarter, that they scored more than them in the fourth. So that's how determined this team is. That's how, ready and willing they are to just, be dogs and to play 4 quarters of basketball. So I think they just need to play 4 quarters of basketball and just really get off to a hot start like they did in game 2. So that's one of their biggest things all season is just slow starts. And I really just want to see them put the nail in the coffin by the halftime. And I think we'd be in a good spot.
So I know I brought you on mostly to talk Sky, but I know you're a Bears fan as well. So I figured why not throw a little bit of Bears in there? I mean, I could talk Bears forever. So what are your thoughts on the new coaching staff, how they've handled some of these player issues, Roquan Smith? Where do you want to start?
I think I start with Poles. I love what he's doing. He is my favorite general manager in all of Chicago sports. I would say he's top 3 already in the last decade for me because he's very transparent. He's telling you what it is. Here's what's going to happen, and here's why we're doing what we're doing. And there's no sneaky Jed Hoyer behind closed doors kind of conversations that you don't know where guys are going to be and you don't know what their future lies right now. And I hope I don't lose any viewers for you guys, but Roquan Smith is a complete asshole. No,
I'm on that same train.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
I don't know who you think you're talking to. I don't know who told you you're better than, Frederick Warner or you're looking at Darius Leonard and guys like that. When you're looking at Darius, who's played 3 less games than you and has 17 forced fumbles and you have 1, and you're asking to be the highest paid linebacker in history. And from what I'm understanding is he's only a few million shy of that from what you're asking for. The only difference is incentives. And if you are him, which I hate, but it's so accurate. If you are the guy, then you should have no problem with incentives. And I think, when you look at a guy who's 2-time All-Pro second team, they're not even a first teamer. It's a conversation to where, and you had Mac, Hicks, Fuller, Eddie Jackson in his prime in 2018. And I still couldn't say that you were a top 3 player on this Bears defense until they blew it up. Even last year, it was Robert Quinn who took the reins. So I think when you really look at it from that perspective, I think Roquan, to me at least, is one of those guys. Maybe you are the leader of this team, but the way he's been acting, and he did that when he got drafted. He was the last rookie to sign his rookie deal because of financial issues with Pace. So this isn't just a Poles issue. This has been a Roquan issue of being self-represented. So, and
then he also a couple of years ago sat out a few games for personal reasons also. The guy's been kind of just all over the place in terms of reliability for this team. Right.
And then, I understand the mental health aspect of things, and I won't hit him for that. But, the torn bicep. He's had a torn bicep twice, I believe. And, you have these ligament issues. Your health isn't the greatest. So I think right now when I look at Poles and him sticking to his guns, Ryan Pace folds. Ryan Pace folds without a shadow of a doubt. And probably doesn't even have $100 million right now to play with. He spends it all on $70 million on Mike Glennon for 3 games and stuff like that.
So running back or something like that.
Yeah, I love what he's doing right now. And as far as Eberflus, if Tevin Jenkins, who to me is starting to buy in and looks like he's starting to buy into stuff, he had a rough start. Eddie Jackson had a rough start. Guys you expected to, be kind of cocky and believe that they can do whatever they want to do. I love what Eberflus is doing, and I think he's one of those guys too. When I look at Pace and Nagy, I always called them car salesmen because, you know, the second you drive out the lot, you realize you're driving a piece of shit. So, you know,
Right.
Eberflus and Poles, they've been very transparent. They're not folding to the players. And I think that's the culture you want.
You know what I like about Eberflus the most is like all the last 2 years, right? What have we said most is that the team looks so unprepared, right? You come off a bye week, you get smoked. You're after halftime, you're not looking like you're ready. It's a started game, you're not looking ready. What I've liked so far in the preseason is that the team looks professional, right? They're coming out there, they're not doing stupid penalties. They look like they're hungry to win. I think, you know, he might not be the answer at the coaching position when the Bears win a Super Bowl, but right now I think it's a coach that they needed, somebody who was going to push these guys to actually want to play. That's something Nagy never did. You go back and listen to, you know, press conferences and stuff like that. He never pushed these guys during practice. You got Eberflus his first week in practice getting fined because he's got guys going full speed with pads, you know, and that's something that's Bears football, right? Bears football.
Right. I can live with that.
Right. Hard-nosed, hard-hitting guy, you know, football, and that's what I'd like to see. I see these guys buying in, especially the younger guys, like Darnell Mooney was talking about it. Jalen Johnson talked about it. Tarbill, what do you think about this Bears team?
I'm excited for what this Bears team is going to do this season. I think more than others, I've been a little bit fan-sided, but at the same time optimistic with what we've seen thus far. I told Ace the other night when we were doing our last show that I would be hard-pressed to see this team win less than 9 games this coming season. I mean, they've got a stretch against some really bad teams, which obviously helps. Our guy Alan Bratcher in the chat.
Yes, sir.
Got a stretch of really bad games, which helps. You've got the Giants, the Jets, the Texans on the schedule, like almost all back-to-back, so that helps. Obviously, the Detroit Lions should almost still be a gimme, although they're starting to look better. I think that those are 2 games the Bears win. Not going into the schedule too much in depth, but I think that this team's really got a chance to do some good things this season. One thing that I really liked today out of the presser was that Eberflus stated that all of the starters, including Justin Fields, are going to play up until halftime. In this third preseason game. That's the target. That's a total switch in mentality from what Matt Nagy brought to this organization. I mean, Matt Nagy sat Mitchell Trubisky and completely the 4th game of the preseason every year, and then they would go out and get smoked the first game because they weren't ready.
Right.
I want to see Justin Fields throw a touchdown before the season starts, so I'm all for putting him in there in preseason and letting him play the half. What do you have to lose? This team, like I said, I think they're at 9 games this season. If they do slide into the playoffs somehow, they're not going to compete. They're not a playoff-ready team at this point.
I mean, you got them in 9 wins. Like, let's say Justin Fields does take that step forward. 9 wins. I mean, they could get to 10 or 11. You know what I mean? They lost a few games last year with terrible coaching that they could have won easily. You know,
I think that's not out of the realm, Ace, at all. I do think that this team could be at 10 or 11 wins if everything goes right and shock some people. Maybe get into the first round of the playoffs and get some experience for the younger guys, especially Fields. It would be good to obviously see him perform in a playoff setting, but you know, I think it is a turning point, and you alluded to it. We have to see Justin Fields develop this season. Mike, what are your thoughts on what you've seen out of Fields so far, and are there concerns that you have with Justin Fields?
I think my main concern, and I'm a big Trevor Lawrence, I'm a big Justin Fields guy. I've watched those kids since high school. They were my graduating class, and you know, me as a former football player, watching them on Max Prep Sports, watching their highlights throughout high school, and Justin's even his Netflix series was so much fun to watch. The difference between the two is Justin's health has always been huge for me, and Justin's health will always be the biggest concern for me. I think this kid is a sponge. Like, he wants to learn, he's willing to learn, he's willing to do whatever he can. And his athleticism and his IQ is not the issue. I think Justin remaining healthy is going to be the biggest tell of what his future in Chicago and what his future in the NFL look like. And to kind of piggyback off of what you said, I don't have this team winning 9 or 10 games. But when I look at them, I've even spoken with my buddy Allen about it. I look at them as I look at the 2021 Detroit Lions. I think when you look at their record at the end of the year, they are going to have a top 5 pick. I think that's a gimme. But I don't think it'll scream exactly how this season panned out. I think they're a team that's going to fight for the first 3 quarters into this season and into this game. And then when you look at it in the fourth quarter, I just don't think they have the depth or the experience to be able to hang with guys. When you look at the Lions last year, they were so willing to fight for Dan Campbell. And I was always been a huge Dan Campbell fan.
Yep.
He's a great guy. And if you haven't watched Hard Knocks already,
you have to.
You have
You're a Dan Campbell fan.
Watch,
That's his fucking.
Yeah. And now it's like everyone's starting to join me into the Dan Campbell fan club room. And I'm like, I was by myself last year, and now you guys are here. I was all for the biting of the kneecaps. I was with it. But I think the Lions are going to take a big step this year, especially with Aiden Hutchinson. But my big thing moving forward, when I look at this Bears team, just like that team, you had the Lions last year who were hanging into 4 quarters of football with the San Francisco 49ers, with the Green Bay Packers. They were hanging in. And when it comes to his depth and when it comes to his experience, and I think the Bears are lacking that hugely. That's why, my big thing is I don't want us to just sign people to sign people. I know OBJ, it doesn't really make sense because he's not going to be here for the majority of the season.
Right.
But a big one for me is still Will Fuller. I think Will Fuller would be great for this team, and them just bringing in more weapons. But I trust, like I said, I trust Eberflus. I trust this team. I trust Justin Fields, and really the only question is, are you going to burn out after the third quarter?
Yep. I mean, I agree.
I don't see it. I do have to kind of counter there. Sorry, Ace. Just even with the lack of depth and experience, I would say I feel like if anyone can coach this team up to play 4 hard quarters of football, it's Matt Eberflus with his hits mentality. Obviously, very high energy. You saw what he did with the defense in Indianapolis, and I just feel like he's going to coach these guys above their skill level a little bit. And maybe I'll be wrong. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess.
And we love that, bro. We love that. That's the stuff that makes Bears fans Bears fans.
Yeah,
exactly.
Always optimistic.
It's that maybe this is our year mentality. This is not our year. We know
that's
it's
just a
not
Chicago sports fan mentality. Always. Yeah.
I just think when you look at and my big thing has always been who you have, who is your roster, and who's important to you. And I think he's definitely going to make some guys look better than they are. Like Blackson looks amazing. Dominique looks amazing. All these guys, they're really out here. Jack, from Illinois, that kid is a stud linebacker. And, I love everything he's doing. But one of the biggest things for me is at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, when you're playing against someone like a Devontae Adams or an Aaron Jones or an Aaron Rodgers, you can be skilled up by your head coach, but you got to be able to make those plays. And, it's going to be crazy to see, them have to go against some of these guys they play this year. It's, I'm trying to get to that game on Christmas against Josh Allen and the Bills. That's going to be one of those games. Fourth quarter, I don't care who's on that defensive squad. It ain't nothing you're going to do to Stephon Diggs or Josh Allen. And that's where I think the difference is going to be who you're playing.
Right.
No,
I don't think it's going to be as bad as people initially thought coming into the season.
I would say
could see
6,
them.
7.
Yeah, I could see them getting to over 6.5. I think 7 is a good number. Is it going to be enough to get them a top 5 pick? I don't know. The best case scenario, I went to the ESPN Football Fest on Saturday, and Tom Waddle was talking about, best case scenario, right, is that you see Justin Fields develop. Mm-hmm. You see some of these other guys take a step forward. The defense is playing really well, but they're losing. And Bears fans, I know they don't like, we can't lose. But that is the best case scenario, top 5 draft pick, right? You finally have your first round pick. You have all your picks this year. And to me, that's kind of where I think where I would like to see, top 5 pick, but still see the quarterback develop.
Right.
Now, I have one serious question for you. I don't know if you've seen the video out of the New York Yankees game with the gentleman who likes to drink from a hot dog straw.
I did see that.
The hot dog straw.
Hot dog straw, yay or nay?
I'm gonna say nay from personal experience and personal opinions of mixing foods and drinks. I think Yeah, I think that's just kind of, to each their own, I guess I'll say, to save face, but you won't catch me doing that anytime soon.
No, definitely not.
So I didn't see this video. I'm assuming this gentleman.
Yeah, like he sticks like a straw through the center of like the hot dog the long way, and then like sticks the hot dog in his beer and drinks it.
Yeah, and he takes out the straw, so it's just straight hot dog.
Hot dog.
He's just sucking on the hot dog. It's not like the straw's even in there.
Disgusting.
It just seems like a lot of work and just like not enough benefit for
right. Right. Risk versus reward is not there.
Like when I was a kid, I was a little kid. I used to mix ketchup and Doritos. It was dope. As a kid, it was dope. But this was like, and tell me if I'm wrong. It was like probably like a 60-something-year-old man.
Yeah.
He wasn't a younger kid or anything. It was just one of those things where I was like, I thought we stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yeah, it was definitely something that turned my stomach.
Yeah.
I'm weird, man. Like I have to have my food the way it's supposed to be prepared is kind of how it has to be for me. I would say nay as well.
I definitely reshared it though. It was pretty dope.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to also say nay on that one. That just again sounds like too much effort, no reward, and
disgusting.
Yeah, I don't. It makes me think of the hot dog water in the bottom of the pack, right? Like you don't.
Yeah, that's what I first thought of. Was like it's like mixing a beer in the hot dog water, and I was like, nah.
I'll pass on that one.
Mike, I want to thank you, man, for jumping on with us. I know you got a Sky game to get ready for. You want to let everybody kind of know where they can find you?
Yeah, man. Mike on the Mike podcast. You can find that on all streaming platforms. And Skytown is brought to you by the All Sports All Plays Network. If you haven't checked that out already, it's a great network, a great group of guys that I work with, and they make the best content. Whether you're into lacrosse or football, basketball, it's great. You can watch Skytown on there, or you can go on Mike on the Mike YouTube. You can click on the playlist of Skytown, and we got every episode with interviews from Candace Parker, Coach Wade, Allie, Court, and one of my besties and Rebecca Gardner. So it's great to see them. And, I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys do great stuff. And it's been a blast, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. And maybe we can get you out sometime during the Bears season.
For sure, man. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Sounds good, Mike. Have a good night.
You too, brother.
Go Sky.
All right. Mike Hughes. Right. So, Scott, I'm just going to be honest, right? I'm not as well versed in WNBA as I am in like the NFL, but
no, I'm understood.
But with the success that the Sky have seen, it's been fun to be able to watch them. It's been for sure. Like Mike said, I'm a huge Chicago sports guy, right? So anytime a Chicago team is doing well, you cheer for them, except the White Sox. Right. That's the only one I don't cheer for.
I don't cheer for the White Sox, but I don't cheer against them either.
I don't cheer against them. I just don't cheer for them. I don't think their fans are going to be cheering for them much more going forward because it kind of looks like they might miss the playoffs if they don't.
Their fans are going to cheer for Tony La Russa to be fired. That's what's going to happen.
Now, that's kind of a good topic. Do you think that happens if they miss the playoffs this year?
I absolutely think that happens if they.
Do you think he gets fired or like he retires?
I think he retires at the end of this year, regardless of their record. Yeah. They could go out and win the World Series, and I think
that would be the best case scenario for him is to win the World Series and retire.
Not that I think they're going to win the World Series by any means. I mean, you just got shellacked by the Astros 21-5 or whatever it was the other day.
Every time this team looks like
is so disappointing. And here's the thing. Let me go back to the La Russa topic for a second, and then I'll express my frustration for White Sox fans. Tony La Russa, you're falling asleep in the first fucking inning of a game.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time this has happened. I think it's the first time it happened in the first inning. But it's just a bad look. You're 70... How old is La Russa?
76, I think.
76
or 78, somewhere around there.
Okay, you're well into your 70s. By the time I'm well into my 70s, I want to be sitting in my boxers on my couch drinking a fine whiskey. Like, I do not want to be traveling with a team for a 162-game schedule when I'm that old. To me, it just seems that he should have retired, in my opinion, and been done after his stint with the Cardinals in 2011, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why. For one, why did Jerry Reinsdorf feel that he had to right some wrong by bringing this guy back 30 years later? It might not have been 30 years, but it was probably about that because he originally managed the Sox in the late 80s, correct?
Was it late or early? Yeah, I know he was manager of the White Sox for a minute.
And it was in the 80s. Either way, you try to rectify this situation. Ricky Renteria was not that bad of a manager. Like, I don't understand the choice to move on from him and move to a guy like Tony La Russa, and then you've got this guy falling asleep at games. You've got him defending the wrong call. I mean, for me, that was one of the turning points in kind of my dislike for Tony La Russa was it was like a 2-0 count, and he walked a guy earlier in the year. Or I'm sorry, it was an 0-2 count, and he walks a guy earlier in the year. And Scott Merkin asked him a question after the game, like, why would you do that in that situation? And he completely defended himself and just talked out his ass because he didn't know what he was talking about. Like, to me, that's what's most frustrating is what is he bringing to this team at this point?
Nothing.
Reports have said that he's lost the clubhouse. There's speculation that a lot of guys don't believe in him. Managers, I'm a guy that's a big proponent of baseball managers don't really matter that much.
Right.
I think a baseball manager probably wins or loses, plus or minus 15 games in a season.
Right.
They may have a direct outcome on 10 to 15 games a season. That's just my opinion.
Well, but here, so like you're saying, what has he contributed, right? Look at the way that he is, like you said, sleepy, kind of clueless, falling asleep, boring. And I mean, that's kind of how this White Sox team has been all season, right? They've been real sluggish, a lot of guys injured in and out of the lineup. Pitching's been okay, subpar at times. They just don't look like they have the energy that they had last season. Is it all the injuries kind of catching up to them or what? But I think you got to kind of just look in the mirror and say, all right, Tony, we appreciate you being here, but it's not working.
It's time to move on. It's time for a change. It's time for a more modern manager.
In the words of Owen Hart, enough is enough, and it's time for a change.
Absolutely. So, switching topics here, Ace, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you.
Throw it. I'm good at hitting the curve.
Did you have a chance to watch, or did you at least watch the highlights of the UFC fights from Saturday?
I did not.
So,
I was driving back from the football fest, so I was like dog ass.
That's right.
When I left it. We'll get into that, but go into the UFC first.
There was a ridiculous knockout win for the championship. Usman got defeated by a kick to the head with like a minute and 30 seconds left in the fight. And Joe Rogan said it was the greatest head kick knockout that he's ever seen in the history of the UFC. It was just brutal. For those of our fans that watched, it was absolutely brutal. And I know everybody that viewed it loved it. But with that being said, I think Joe Rogan is wrong. I want to go on the record and say that Anderson the Spider Silva has the best head kick knockout of all time.
To be honest, most of the time when I'm watching UFC, I'm at a bar and I'm kind of drunk. So like,
so you have nothing to offer to this conversation, is what you're telling me.
So like, I like watching the UFC, right? But a lot of the times, like I said, I'm at a bar, a lot of people, food, drinks. So sometimes I miss a lot of the finishes and I have to watch them on replay.
No, and that's fine. When we get off the air tonight, you need to go and watch that knockout. I think I might have sent it to you, actually.
I think you did in the group chat that we have.
That was one of the most ridiculous knockouts I've ever seen. It was good. Just saying that overall, man, UFC, crazy sport. Conor McGregor, this is what I wanted to allude to, and I want to tie this back into football somehow. So I'm going to say our guy Ryan Fitzpatrick was rocking the Conor McGregor look for a while there last year before he got injured, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The whole who the fuck is Jameis Winston memes and all that stuff. But Conor McGregor, man, talking a lot on social media. He wants another fight. He wants to get back in the ring with the champion. Dana White doesn't. I don't know that Dana White doesn't think he's ready, but I don't think he's ready for that. He's been removed from the sport for a while.
Didn't he lose his last 2 fights, right?
He has.
Usually once that happens, you're kind of – I think that the sport is – this is what I do know about the UFC. It's a young man's sport, right? You've seen it time and time again. All these old people, got women and men that hold on. Look at Ronda Rousey, right? She came back. She got her ass kicked by Holly Holmes. Left for a while. Came back. Got her ass kicked by Amanda Nunes, right?
Yes.
And I mean, that girl is just on this other trajectory right now, though. Same thing with Conor McGregor, though, right? Like he lost his last 2 fights. Does he really think he's going to get into the shape he needs to get into and compete for a title?
Like your biggest accolade in the last 3 years is you lost a boxing match to
Floyd Mayweather.
Like,
right? Yeah.
I don't get it, man. I wanted to take it.
And like I get it. Do what you want. Be who you are. That's who he is. You know, he's a shit talker. And he's a promoter who promotes himself, right? And that's what you got to do to promote yourself. Money's money, and I don't care what anybody says. People are going to pay to watch him fight. That's just what they do,
right?
You know, it's like Brock Lesnar, right? If Lesnar was to be like, "Hey, I'm going to go fight again," people will know he'd probably lose, but they're still going to pay to watch him fight.
I have to disagree with Brock Lesnar. I never thought Brock Lesnar was a good fit for the UFC. He came out, he had a couple strong fights, but after that, throwing Brock Lesnar out there was just like throwing Kimbo Slice, RIP, out there. And, you know, CM Punk even tried for a while.
Tried? I mean, he got his ass kicked his first fight, and then he should have gotten beat a lot sooner in the second fight. But I feel like the dude was like told, "Hey, don't end this shit too soon."
Right. Former Dallas Cowboys star Greg Hardy's tried his. If MMA is not your first sport, it's extremely difficult to train the body to the level that requires the excellence of that craft, and it's a different beast, man. You know, you get out there, you're a big wrestling guy. Vince is a big wrestling guy. You guys watch a lot of it. At the end of the day, I'm not going to say it's not a sport. I do believe it is a sport, but there's more of a performance aspect to it. Those guys, yes, sometimes they do get injured, but, you know, I mean, you look at Brock Lesnar and the way he performs in the WWE, he's top tier, one of the best talents they have. He goes in the ring or goes in the octagon and gets his face pounded in. You know, I don't care that he's got a triple H-sized glove or whatever it is. You know, the guy's just got humongous hands. It doesn't matter in that aspect. If you're built for the sport, you are. I think a lot of these guys, WWE stars, current and former, you know, and then alluding back to what you said with MMA being a younger man's quote-unquote game, you know, you see time and time again these guys go to make a comeback. Randy Couture tried to jump back in the octagon at like 42. Got his teeth kicked in by Lyoto Machida. Like, Chuck Liddell fought Tito Ortiz 3 times back in the day. Like, give it up at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
building up to these trilogy type fights where a guy wins one, a guy loses one, the series is tied 1-1, and then they've got to bring the third fight to end the series and clearly define a winner. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to catch some shade for saying this, but I believe there is some behind closed doors scripting that goes on in UFC.
I'm not going to say you're wrong. I think that from what I've watched in the UFC, I think there's a lot of fights that are made with the thought of, okay, this is the guy we want to push to be the new face of wherever we want to go. So we're going to feed him a bunch of guys that we know he should be able to beat, right? Not saying that.
And I guess that's what I'm alluding to.
Right.
More than, I don't believe they're going out there and saying,
hey, you're going to lose in the third round.
In the head and be
right,
unconscious.
Right. No, I think it's.
But the matchups definitely sometimes favor the narrative that they want to, the story that they want to tell.
Right. And that's how boxing was for a lot. Well, it still is, really, especially now with guys like Logan Paul, Jake Paul boxing for exhibition matches and shit.
Is boxing still a sport? I'm just kidding.
I don't know, to be honest. Like, it's kind of become a game, really, if you follow fighting and boxing. And I used to love boxing, right?
Right.
It was, I mean, Muhammad Ali, every year in school, I did a project on him. I would, float like a butterfly, all that stuff. I loved boxing. But
Iron Mike Tyson.
Yeah, Mike Tyson. Gonna bite your ear off. Bite your ear off. Dude, he's got edible ears that you can buy that are like gummy ears with weed in it.
That's genius marketing from him, I guess.
Right. And he's got his podcast. I think it's called like Hot Boxing, which is pretty sweet. It's a unique name, but I like it.
Yeah, I saw that recently. He did an interview with Eminem that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, he's done some pretty good stuff. Now, do you mind if I switch topics?
Go ahead. Go right on.
Sidebar,
ahead.
May I approach if we're...
Yes, you may. This is Sport Court.
Speaking of ESPN 1000 references, I had the pleasure of getting invited to the ESPN Football Fest last Saturday. VIP, which is... I've never been VIP anywhere, so this was pretty cool. I'll just say it was an awesome experience. I got to meet, a lot of the guys from the station. I met Adam Schefter, Field Yates. That was pretty sweet. Overall, great venue. They talked a lot, obviously, about the Bears, but they talked a lot about Roquan Smith. And I wanted to bring that up with Mike, and I forgot. But like, he had brought up the contract talks, and Schefter, when he was there, said that the Bears offered him more than fair enough compensation. That they had offered him a contract that Schefter himself felt was above what most people would have offered him. So right. if I'm a fan, like, I get it, Roquan's good. Let me ask you this. If Roquan wasn't on this team, do you think it would make that big of a difference?
I don't. And I'm going to give you a real honest opinion here. I treat linebackers in general just like I treat running backs. They're a dime a dozen. They're replaceable. You don't pay those guys big money in a system. At least I don't. And I understand how important that position is to the Tampa 2 defense, yes, and what Coach Eberflus is trying to build. Do I pay Roquan Smith like he's Shaq Leonard? No. Shaq Leonard forces fumbles and rushes the quarterback. Roquan Smith doesn't do that.
Right.
At the end of the day, for me, if Roquan Smith can't come to terms with the team, I'm going to be an asshole and I'll franchise tag him. You'll play on the franchise tag next year. Yeah. At the end of the day, this is a business, and I think there's much more there are larger needs that this can be allocated to. This money, this potential contract that they're going to give him, can be allocated to. Our number one receiver is Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is terrific. I love what he's done for the Bears thus far.
Right.
We've had that argument before as well. Go get a true number one receiver, a 6'5", 220, 225-pound guy that's going to go up, catch contested 50-50 balls. You had him in Allen Robinson. You phased him out because Matt Nagy's an idiot. And then he got pissed off, and now he's looking great in training camp out.
And now he's going to be the number
in LA. He's going to be unstoppable.
Yep. Well, if Matt Stafford can play, he can play. His arm's kind of fucked up, they say.
Stafford?
Yes, he's got an elbow injury that's kind of, nagging elbow injury, I believe is what they said.
So, we'll get back to Roquan and the Bears, but real quick on that point, it only took Matthew Stafford one season away from the Detroit Lions to be as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
As far as playoff wins and Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Go.
Yep.
It's wild, is it not?
So living up in Wisconsin, it's kind of funny, right? Like I have to realize where I'm at as a Bears fan, right? The Bears are shit.
Right.
We're living up here. I watch it every year. The Bears get their ass kicked. The Bears are shitty during the regular season. Like I've watched it. I've watched Aaron Rodgers just destroy teams during the regular season. But at the end of the season, it comes to a point where it's like, okay, cool. They're in the playoffs. Duh. But it's
Right.
like, what round are they going to go out in? You know?
So you saw the Barstool Big Cat interview with Aaron Rodgers, right?
I loved every second of it.
I love Barstool Big Cat in general. He's one of my favorite media personalities to follow, just because the Barstool guys traditionally are more outlandish, right, than traditional media. And
Right.
They say things that are never going to be said on the radio, and that's fine. I love it, and that's what I like about them. But Barstool Big Cat basically sat and stared Aaron Rodgers in the face and said, like, my Super Bowl is watching you lose in the playoffs every year.
And
Rodgers was just like, okay.
Because Rodgers said something about, like, how does it feel being a Bears fan knowing that the highlight of your fandom is watching me lose in the playoffs?
And he's like, I fucking love it. It's my Super Bowl. It's what I look forward to every year. Like, and I got to resonate with that a little bit, because last year when the San Francisco 49ers knocked the Packers out of the playoffs, and you literally hear Jimmy Garoppolo and Robbie Gould say F Packers.
You can say the F word on this show. Yes. It's okay. Fuck the Packers is what he said.
I already have dropped a couple bombs. I was trying to keep it somewhat PG, PG-13.
PG-14. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's a little over that.
With that being said, I mean, you hear them say fuck the Packers. You hear George Kittle when the 49ers backed the Bears into the playoffs the season before last. You hear George Kittle saying, I fucking love the Bears. Like, all of these little moments like that outside of football in Chicago, I thrive on it. And better way than Robbie Gould, the Bears' all-time leading scorer, by the way, to turn around and end the Packers season. Like, I loved that. And
that's what makes it even better, right? Like, watching the Packers lose, I'm going to be open and honest, right? Up here, my phone, anytime the Bears get beat, my phone gets to vibrate. Oh, hey, somebody's talking shit. One of my friends talking shit, right?
Right.
The only shit that I can talk is when the Packers get bounced in the playoffs by a former Chicago Bear. It makes it that much better, right? And Barstool Big Cat said it perfectly. Like, if cheering for Aaron Rodgers to lose in the playoffs is our Super Bowl, then we have more Super Bowl victories than he does.
Yeah, I loved that interview. It was great. I mean, but back to the Chicago Bears and what they're going to do this season. I want to commend our general manager for sticking to his guns, because, as you said, the previous regime would have folded to Roquan instantly.
Yep.
But
Mike was 100% right.
We have Ryan Poles as a guy who does what he says and says what he does. At the end of the day, I hate alluding it to a simple saying like that, but he's been 100% transparent. He said, as you alluded to, Schefter even said that the deal they offered Roquan was more than fair. He gave him a deal that he put on the table that he was very comfortable with, and Roquan went and cried on Twitter. Like, that's what it boiled down to. You disrespected this organization, this city, and these fans by saying that they didn't see the value in you as a player and everything else. And then it comes out, I don't know what the deal was, but I heard it was around the realm of 17 to 18 million a year, which is very respectable money.
So the talk at the event, like, I heard my insiders, you know, I was hanging out with Shefty and Field Yates, no big deal. But
no big deal.
They were talking about how they didn't say an actual number, but they said it was over 18. So,
okay.
In my my thought was probably around 19 mil, 19.5.
I don't think he's worth 19.
I don't either. He would have been the third highest paid linebacker, which is fair. 100%. I think that's fair. He's not number one. He's not number two. The two guys in front of him,
Shaq
they
Leonard's
just
obviously
perform
number
better.
one.
Right. They just perform better. They do more for their team. You're not going to get paid like a guy like Aaron Donald. You're fucking crazy.
Well, here's the thing. You can be a great leader. You can be a leader of men. And yes, that's valuable to the mental aspect of a team. Guess what? Sam Mustipher's a great guy. Shitty fucking center. Like, the fact that he was getting reps with the starters just irks me. And hopefully Olin Kreutz isn't watching this right now. But
Yeah, come over here and beat you up or something.
But no, in all actuality, I mean, what do you have to gain by paying Roquan Smith 19.5 million? Even if it was 18, even if I stick to that number, I'm much more comfortable paying him 16, 17 a year. And at the end of the day, we're talking millions of dollars. Like,
right. Like,
thing.
it's not like, oh, I'm making
you're upset. It's
$15 an hour versus
they haven't
$17
re-signed you. You're
Right.
making fucking $9.5 million this year on a rookie deal.
So you're making 95 million instead of 100 million. Like, oh, I know that's easy for me to say, but I feel like if I had 95 million, that extra 5 million really wouldn't matter that much.
Exactly. You'd be set up for life if you did
Right.
things right with your finances.
I mean, right. Well, but he doesn't have an agent, so he don't know what the fuck he's doing.
So, and that's something that's uncommon I've alluded to as well. Usually guys who don't have agents are guys that are getting the veteran minimum or like a 1-year deal, practice squad type guys, because they can't afford an agent.
Right.
You're making $9.5 million this year on your rookie deal.
Mhm.
You can afford to pay 10% commission to some agent to have them negotiate for you. And I think that's where Roquan Smith's feelings got hurt, is I think Ryan Poles said, this is what you're worth to this organization, and drew out a number, and Roquan didn't like the number, didn't like the incentives, and he got offended. He took it personal when you can't take it personal in the business of negotiating.
And that's why you have an agent.
They
Right.
are that person that softens things up for you, butters it up a little bit before they tell you, this is what we're doing.
Right.
Ryan Poles is probably like, this is what you're worth to the team. Here's an offer, sign it.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it. He wants to go on Twitter. He wants to complain, request a trade, and then
during his interview
10 days later and say you're going to play the deal out.
Right. And then he's meeting the media and he continues to shit on the Bears. Like,
Yeah. Oh, publicly.
yes. Like if it was me and I was the Bears,
I would have had a closed door talk with him right then and there.
right. Well,
As soon as he got off that podium, he would have been in my office. And
do you think it would have mattered though? No, because he's shown that he doesn't care. He'll go to any lengths he has to. That's why I don't think he'll be on this team next year.
well, and it's almost like an oxymoron, right? Because yes, the guy plays good football. Yes, he's a leader of men, and et cetera, et cetera. I have nothing bad to say about Roquan as a player, other than he's not a $20 million plus a year guy. He's just not. And that's factual. I don't think there's anyone that would argue Roquan Smith is worth 20, 22 million a year. I think Shaq Leonard's right around that 20 million a year, and he wanted more than him supposedly. So
yes.
it kills me. First of all, know your worth. Like, that's a huge philosophy that I've always lived my life on, right? Is know your worth. Know what you're worth in any given situation. And in the situation that he's in, yes, he's a good player. I wouldn't say he's a great player.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't
Not
say
even a little bit.
I'll put it this way. When you look at linebackers of Chicago Bears history, is he in the top 5? No.
No.
Is he
No
in the
way.
top 10? Maybe, but he's towards the
Maybe.
bottom.
Right.
Like-
He'd be 10 at the most.
At the end of the day, what was Brian Urlacher making? What was Lance Briggs making when they were in their primes? Obviously, if we adjust for inflation, everything like that, I'm sure Brian Urlacher in today's league, if he was playing today, would not be making $22 million a year.
Nope.
And he was cream of the crop, right? Top 5 guy.
Yep.
It's just the reality of the situation. Linebackers are replaceable. I'll say this, like, you always hear on ESPN 1000, Yurko always says about running backs, like, they're replaceable. You don't pay them. They're a dime a dozen. And I completely agree with that philosophy, but I translate it over to the linebacker position. I don't think there's a situation where Roquan Smith being on this team wins or loses games for you.
I agree.
I think
he's not an edge rush.
Another body in there. You've got a phenomenal edge rusher in Robert Quinn, who set the sack record last year.
Yep.
You've got arguably one of the potential. Rephrase this. You've got arguably a top 5 secondary in the NFL now with who you've drafted, and obviously Jalen Johnson developing, Eddie Jackson going back to play more traditional Eddie Jackson football.
He's the guy I think that is going to take a bigger step than I think people realize.
Eddie Jackson?
Yeah, I think he's going
to
a lot with the defensive schemes that they were running the last 2 seasons. I do think he has a better year.
Well, we saw it when he was in college, right? And he played for the number 1 team in the country, both in recruiting and the CFB poll. You saw Eddie Jackson at Alabama, Roll Tide,
You're gonna do that.
be a tremendous ball hawk and just swat the ball away, get interceptions like crazy. But he was out there, he wasn't covering half of the field like the Bears the last 2 years were trying to make him do either.
Right.
So I think now that he moves back towards his traditional role and, focuses on what he does well in being that ball hawk type player, I think you see tremendous improvement out of Eddie Jackson this year. Eddie Jackson was never a tackler. He never.
No, and then he had that hurt shoulder, right?
What?
He hurt his shoulder coming into the draft, right? Out of college.
Right. Yes.
And then he hurt it again I think like right after he got that contract extension. Yeah. He hurt it again, and he hasn't tackled much since. He just kind of like bumps into people and hopes they fall.
Obviously, that's a business decision to some extent, but if you're out there intercepting footballs, swatting footballs away, making top tier plays, I can live with the fact that you're not a tackler, because guess what? There's 10 other guys on that field that should be doing the tackling for you.
If you're getting interceptions, I don't care. Give the team the ball back. I'm cool with you watching guys fall.
So before we wrap up here, Angelo, I alluded to Justin Fields playing a half of football. Mm-hmm. This is what I heard today during the presser from Coach Eberflus. Again, very transparent, very different philosophy than what we've seen out of the previous regime in years past. Eberflus openly comes out and says, I expect the starters to play up to the half.
Yep.
Someone in the media asks him, does that include Justin Fields? Yes, Justin Fields is going to play up until the half. We expect him to get 25 plays. That's huge.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's huge. Bears fans have been yearning to see all the chemistry, the cohesion that's been built within this organization.
Yep.
Obviously, we know Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney are peanut butter and jelly at this point, right? Like, they know each other's timing. They're on the same page all the time. Tremendous. You've got Velus Jones, who I think is going to be a little bit better than most give him credit for.
Yep.
Byron Pringle, I don't know. Maybe it's because his last name's like a chip. I'm a little salty about him, but
I like what you did there. That was good.
I'm just not
that's the best line
proven on Byron yet. So, and then you got Aquanemius St. Brown, who
I love that you say his name right. I could
dropped
never.
footballs all the time in Green Bay. Yeah. Like, that's what he was known for.
Yeah,
dropping footballs.
Yep.
And you got rid of Daz Newsome. Who else do you got there for depth? I mean,
nobody. I
think Bird's still on the team.
No,
he's not. I
think you named all the guys.
Harry. You got N'Keal Harry, who
but he's injured, isn't he?
I think he's banged up a little bit, but I think he's going to be ready to go for week 1.
maybe
You've got N'Keal Harry, who's a big body, a guy former first-round pick. If he gets it together, he could potentially be a number one if he can stay healthy and build chemistry with Fields. Going back to it, I think Eberflus saying that the Bears are going to play the entirety of the first half with the starters in this last preseason game against Cleveland is huge. And what better way for Justin Fields to build some confidence than to go out against the team that Matt Nagy let kill him last year, 11 sacks, and push the ball down the field and score. Like, I think that's a huge confidence boost. And if here's the thing, everybody's like, "Oh, we've seen Fields complete 8 passes in preseason, hasn't scored a touchdown yet." Okay, he's only gotten really one series in this in the last game, and then
it's not like it used to be where you have 4 games.
Like, you've only got 3 games, but now we get to see Justin Fields potentially for a half of football. If he comes out and puts 17 points on the board in a half of football, people are going to be real excited for week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers.
Absolutely. I think I don't think we talk enough. Obviously, as Bears fans, we never, like I said earlier, we never want them to lose, right? But I think we all kind of have to be a little more realistic on the expectations for this team. I know, maybe they don't lose. Maybe they don't only win 3 games, right? They might win 7, 8, 9. But I'm not looking at the record this year and being like, oh, they suck or, oh, they're good. I'm looking to see
Justin Fields,
right. And the offensive line is suspect at best right now.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but the offensive line being suspect, here's my issue. The second team offensive line unit thus far has looked more together and more collaborative than, oh God, now I sound like Matt Nagy. I said collaboration. But the offensive line the second unit's looked better than the first team thus far. I don't understand. What is it? It's not harder to protect Justin Fields than it is to protect Trevor Siemian.
Sometimes I feel like the offensive line play is obviously it's talent, right? But I also think it's the communication between the guys that are on the line, that they all kind of play well enough together and know the tendencies of the other guys next to them to be able to understand how they need to move, where they need to go. You've seen it.
100% agree.
Where like 2 guys will be on the line, right? And then both of them will go the opposite way they're supposed to, and a guy will free rush the quarterback, right? But when you have guys who
Walrus Leno,
turnstile, that's what Yurko used to call him all the time.
Yeah.
But like, if you have guys that are communicating, that know the tendencies of the guys next to them, I think it's a lot easier for you to have production with an offensive line. Now,
for sure.
I think Justin Fields it's going to be hard to understand if he's the guy, if he's under duress so much. If he's not, if he's able to take time in the pocket, here and there, and be able to deliver good strikes or extend a play with his legs, or just kind of look like he's comfortable running the offense and might not be making all the throws, but he's making the right reads, right? That to me is the most important thing.
I would agree, but let me play devil's advocate here a little bit. If he's the guy, he doesn't need all the time in the world to show that he's the guy.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. It's not going to be a situation where you go out and you're getting sacked 15 times a game.
Right.
There would still be flashes, but I think that this offensive line's good enough that if Justin Fields is the guy, which I think he is, I think he's going to show it. I think, for me, I always go back to 2 moments last season. The 4th down touchdown run against the 49ers, where he ran it in, made something out of nothing, and just showed his athleticism and fought to rally that team back. And then the 4th quarter, 3 minutes or so left drive against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he just marched the ball down the field, executed, and then our defense failed us.
There were many times in that Steelers game where he looked the part, right? He made the right read. Just guys didn't deliver defensively. Some
Nobody
guys dropped the
stepped up.
ball. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And that's I'm okay with seeing those types of games. I'm okay with seeing if Justin Fields plays like he did against the Steelers last year in 60% of the games this season. I'm happy and I'm confident that he's the guy moving forward.
I think if he can play that 60% of the time that way in a new offense with not a lot of weapons, new coaching staff, I think that would, at least like you said, to me, you're doing that with all these different variables. You improve some of those other things and you're looking at somebody who could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So
yeah, I agree. Only time will tell, my friend. I'm excited. We only got, Saturday's the last preseason game, and then September 11th, the Bears debut at home.
It's going to be
the horrible grass at Soldier Field. They will be playing against the San Francisco 49ers.
I just watched a clip of Bad Bunny burning the entire field. So he had a concert there the other day, and they lit the field on fire. So
isn't that like the Catch Me Outside girl? I'm sorry.
That's Bad Baby or something.
Something like that.
Bad Bunny is he's a Latin pop rap star. So
I look like I listen to Latin pop rap.
You do. The hat definitely says it.
People have told me that when I shave my head, I look like Pitbull, but that's a story for another day.
I do. I could see that for sure.
But with that being said, man, I think the future's bright. Texas Roadhouse rolls are amazing. Yes, let me die on this soapbox and say real quick. I took my kids school shopping over the weekend. The biggest thing I looked forward to about that trip, besides spending money for no reason, was the fact that I got to go eat rolls and pay $30 for a steak that I couldn't finish. Like, the rolls are where it's at, and they make the meal, man.
They do. They're good.
I'm tempted next time I drive by one, I'm tempted to just stop by like 3-4 things of rolls to take home for the fam, and then stop at Red Robin or something, just so I don't have to wait.
Next time I go, I'm just gonna be like, can I get like 40 rolls? I don't need anything else. Just bring the rolls.
All I need is the rolls. Yes, sir. You have to order something. Bring me a glass of water.
I'll take a scotch and 40 rolls, please. That would be my order. Yeah, but no, they're good. We were going to debate like those versus something else, but we decided that there really is no debate. That they're just
there is no debate. They're the best.
Right.
Unless you have a gluten allergy. If you do, I'm sorry, that has to suck. But they are the best. With that being said, guys, it's been tremendous having you here with us as always. As always, my guy Ace, thank you for doing this tonight.
Yeah, man.
Excellent interview with Mike. It was good chalking it up with you. Good getting some laughs in, and we will have to do this again next week. So
yeah,
whether I'm with you, whether I'm with Vince, we'll be back on the air talking some football. Because
that's right. And I don't know if you guys have noticed down. Oh, where's my finger? Down at the bottom. Hold on, let me get this.
Take away the rolls. Yes,
right
Undefeated
there.
Sports Network is looking for our next podcast personality.
Yes.
Do you have what it takes to be undefeated? If you think you do, please reach out to myself, Ace, or Vince on Twitter, Facebook, or via the group, and we will respond to you and set up a time so we can do some interviewing.
Yeah, we want to get a couple more people, preferably like 3 or 4, because we have a couple different ideas for some shows.
Right.
I just feel like you guys are getting kind of bored just seeing the 3 of us all the time rotating. Maybe not.
And as the network grows, as the network evolves, we need some new voices to come in. So, again, if you guys are interested, please be sure to reach out. We'll set up a time to do an interview, and we'll see what works out. So, with that being said, guys, it's been fun. As always, be sure to go like, share, follow, and subscribe. All that good stuff across Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. As always, I am Tarbill. That's your guy, Ace. We appreciate having you, and we'll see you again next week.